Have you ever made a split-second decision like catching a fly ball in a game or grabbing the quickest checkout line at the grocery store and nailed it without even thinking about it? In those moments, you weren't carefully analyzing probabilities or running through complex calculations. Instead, you relied on intuition, that gut feeling that somehow knew what to do. But have you ever stopped to wonder how that works? This is where Gerd Gigerenzer's groundbreaking book Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious comes in. In Gut Feelings, Gigerenzer challenges one of the most deeply ingrained ideas about human intelligence, that the best decisions are always the result of slow, deliberate analysis. For decades, we've been taught to look before you leap and to rely on logic and rationality for everything from picking investments to navigating personal relationships. Yet Gigerenzer flips the script, arguing that gut feelings, those seemingly impulsive, unconscious judgments, are often just as powerful as, if not more powerful than, logic. He reveals that intuition isn't some mystical sixth sense, but rather a sophisticated tool that our brains have developed over millions of years to help us adapt, survive, and thrive in an unpredictable world. Take sports, for example. When a baseball player catches a fly ball, he doesn't pause to calculate the ball's trajectory, wind speed, or distance using physics formulas. Instead, he follows a simple rule: keep his gaze fixed on the ball and run so the angle of the ball's path remains constant. This heuristic, or mental shortcut, allows the player to arrive at exactly the right spot without consciously knowing how he got there. Gigerenzer shows that similar rules of thumb guide us in everyday life, like how we choose a product at the store, a partner in a relationship, or even whom to trust. What makes gut feelings so compelling is its accessibility and relatability. Gigerenzer uses real-life examples, from police officers spotting criminals to doctors diagnosing illnesses, to demonstrate how intuitive thinking works. These aren't just anecdotes, they're supported by scientific research that explains why intuition can sometimes outperform complex reasoning. For instance, he introduces the recognition heuristic, which helps people make surprisingly accurate decisions by relying on what they know while ignoring irrelevant details. This rule might explain why a tourist can guess the larger of two cities simply by recognizing one name but not the other. Gigerenzer doesn't dismiss logic or analysis altogether. Instead, he highlights the balance between intuition and deliberation, helping readers understand when gut feelings work best and when they might lead us astray. Whether it's making quick decisions under pressure or navigating life's uncertainties, this book serves as a guide to trusting the intelligence of the unconscious. So, if you've ever wondered why you sometimes just know what to do, or if you're curious about how to make better, faster decisions without overthinking, Gut Feelings will change the way you look at your own mind. Join us as we dive into the fascinating world of intuitive intelligence and explore why sometimes less really is more. Have you ever made a decision or taken action without knowing exactly why, only to realize later that it was the right choice? These moments, often called gut feelings, are what psychologist Gerd Gigerenzer explores in Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious. According to Gigerenzer, gut feelings are not random impulses or lucky guesses but a form of intelligence that arises from unconscious processes in the brain. Unlike deliberate, logical thinking, which relies on careful analysis and weighing of pros and cons, gut feelings operate quickly and efficiently, helping us make decisions even in the face of uncertainty. Gigerenzer defines gut feelings as judgments that appear quickly in consciousness, are based on reasons we cannot fully articulate, and are strong enough to influence action. In simpler terms, gut feelings are those immediate instincts or hunches that guide our behavior without the need for deliberate thought. They often emerge when time is limited, information is incomplete, or the decision at hand is too complex for slow, analytical reasoning. Far from being irrational or impulsive, gut feelings are shaped by our experiences, evolved mental shortcuts, and the brain's ability to focus on what really matters while ignoring irrelevant details. To understand how gut feelings differ from deliberate, logical thinking, it helps to look at their underlying processes. Logical thinking involves systematic analysis, breaking down a problem, gathering data, evaluating alternatives, and making a calculated decision. This approach works well for problems that are clearly defined and where time is not a constraint, like planning a detailed monthly budget. However, life often doesn't provide the luxury of unlimited time or perfect information. Gut feelings, by contrast, act as quick, adaptive responses to complex situations, leveraging unconscious processes in the brain to arrive at a decision. While logical thinking is slow and deliberate, gut feelings are fast and instinctive, enabling us to act when hesitation might be costly. Gigerenzer uses vivid examples to illustrate how gut feelings work in real life. One of the most compelling is how baseball players catch fly balls. If you were to ask a player how they know where to run to catch a ball, they likely couldn't explain it. Scientists have long speculated that players must solve complex equations in their heads, calculating the ball's trajectory based on its speed, angle, and wind resistance. But in reality, players rely on a simple rule of thumb called the gaze heuristic. They fix their gaze on the ball and run at a speed that keeps the angle of the ball's path constant. They don't need to calculate where the ball will land, their unconscious processes take care of it, guiding them to the right spot. This example shows how gut feelings can solve complex problems with remarkable efficiency. Another example comes from personal relationships, where gut feelings often guide important decisions. Gigerenzer tells the story of a man torn between two girlfriends, both of whom he loved and admired. To resolve his dilemma, the man tried a logical approach inspired by Benjamin Franklin's moral algebra. He listed all the pros and cons of each relationship, carefully weighed them, and arrived at a calculated conclusion. However, as soon as he saw the result, it felt wrong. His gut had already made the decision, pointing him toward the partner who truly aligned with his values and emotions. The logical exercise only served to make this unconscious choice clear. What makes gut feelings so effective is their reliance on evolved mental shortcuts, known as heuristics. These rules of thumb are not random, they are rooted in the brain's ability to focus on the most important information while ignoring irrelevant details. For example, the recognition heuristic explains why people often make surprisingly accurate decisions by relying on familiarity. In one study, when asked to guess which of two cities had a larger population, participants who recognized one name but not the other were more likely to answer correctly. This heuristic works because it taps into our evolved tendency to associate recognition with significance. Gigerenzer emphasizes that gut feelings are not mystical but adaptive. They have evolved to help humans navigate uncertain environments where overthinking or hesitation could be costly. Whether it's choosing a trustworthy partner, detecting danger, or making a financial investment, our unconscious mind processes patterns and probabilities at a speed our conscious mind cannot match. However, while gut feelings can be remarkably effective, they are not foolproof. Their reliability depends on context. Intuition works best in familiar and predictable environments where past experiences provide a solid foundation. In entirely novel or highly complex situations, deliberate reasoning may be more reliable. By exploring the science behind gut feelings, Gigerenzer challenges the notion that logical thinking is always superior. Gut feelings are not the opposite of logic, they are a different form of intelligence that complements deliberate thinking. They help us navigate life's uncertainties with speed and efficiency. Whether it's catching a fly ball, choosing a partner, or making a quick decision under pressure, our gut instincts often get it right by cutting through complexity and focusing on what really matters. Gut feelings reminds us to embrace the intelligence of the unconscious and to trust our instincts when the situation calls for it. Sometimes, the best decisions aren't the ones we think about the most, they're the ones we feel. Heuristics, often referred to as rules of thumb, are mental shortcuts that help us make decisions quickly and efficiently without the need for extensive analysis. These simple strategies allow us to focus on the most relevant information while ignoring irrelevant details, making them particularly useful in situations where time is limited, information is incomplete, or the decision is too complex for detailed deliberation. Heuristics aren't random guesses, they are adaptive tools that rely on patterns, experiences, and evolved processes in our brains to guide our choices. Gerd Gigerenzer's book Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious explores the power of heuristics and how they allow us to navigate uncertainty effectively. Two key heuristics from the book are the recognition heuristic and the gaze heuristic. The recognition heuristic is a simple but powerful tool we use in decision-making. It operates on the principle of choosing the option we recognize over one we don't. While this might seem overly simplistic, it often leads to surprisingly accurate decisions. For example, imagine you're watching a game show and are asked which city has the larger population, Detroit or Milwaukee. If you recognize the name Detroit but have never heard of Milwaukee, the recognition heuristic would lead you to choose Detroit and you'd be right. This heuristic works because recognition often correlates with importance or size in the real world. Similarly, it's why many consumers choose brands they've heard of over unfamiliar ones. Companies capitalize on this by investing heavily in advertising to make their brand names recognizable, knowing that recognition alone can sway purchasing decisions. The gaze heuristic is another remarkable example of how heuristics guide quick and effective action, especially in dynamic situations. This heuristic is commonly used by baseball players when catching a fly ball. Rather than calculating the ball's trajectory using complex physics factoring in speed, angle, wind resistance, and spin, a player relies on a simple rule of thumb. They fix their gaze on the ball and adjust their running speed so that the angle of the ball in their field of vision remains constant. By following this rule, the player unconsciously positions themselves in the right spot to catch the ball, without needing to know where it will land. This heuristic simplifies a highly complex task, allowing players to act instinctively and successfully under time pressure. Interestingly, similar strategies are used across species, such as by dogs catching frisbees or birds tracking prey mid-flight. Both the recognition heuristic and the gaze heuristic illustrate how our brains use evolved shortcuts to solve problems quickly and efficiently. They show that less information and less deliberation can sometimes lead to better outcomes. Instead of being bogged down by unnecessary details, heuristics allow us to focus on what really matters in a given situation. Gigerenzer's work highlights the intelligence behind these seemingly simple strategies, demonstrating that gut feelings and heuristics are far from random. They are grounded in the adaptive power of the human mind. The idea that less is more in decision-making challenges the common belief that having more information always leads to better choices. Gerd Gigerenzer, in Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious, argues that sometimes, relying on fewer pieces of information or simple rules of thumb can be more effective than overanalyzing a problem. This counterintuitive concept stems from the idea that excessive information can overwhelm us, creating analysis paralysis, a state where too many options or too much data makes it difficult to decide at all. Instead, focusing on a few key cues often leads to better decisions, as illustrated in a striking experiment involving German and American students. In the experiment, students were asked to guess which city had a larger population, Detroit or Milwaukee. Interestingly, the German students outperformed their American counterparts, despite the fact that they knew far less about American geography. Why? The Germans relied on the recognition heuristic, a simple rule that says if you recognize one option but not the other, choose the one you recognize. Most of the German students had heard of Detroit, a globally famous city associated with the American automobile industry and Motown music, but not Milwaukee. By applying the recognition heuristic, they correctly inferred that Detroit must be the larger city. The American students, on the other hand, had heard of both cities. This knowledge should have been an advantage, but it wasn't. Instead of relying on a simple heuristic, they overanalyzed the question, trying to recall details about the city's characteristics and industries. This led to confusion and errors in judgment. Their extra knowledge, while seemingly helpful, introduced irrelevant or misleading information that clouded their decision-making process. In contrast, the Germans' partial ignorance allowed them to rely solely on recognition, which, in this case, was a highly effective cue. This example highlights a fundamental principle: in uncertain situations, where not all variables are clear, simplicity often outperforms complexity. More information does not always clarify the decision; instead, it can clutter the mind and lead to second-guessing. The German students, limited by their lack of detailed knowledge, avoided this trap and made quicker, more accurate decisions. In a world of uncertainty, heuristics like recognition help us focus on what truly matters, allowing us to make decisions without being bogged down by unnecessary data. Gigerenzer's research shows that the principle of less is more applies in many areas of life. In investing, for example, relying on a simple strategy like diversifying evenly across options, the 1/n rule, can sometimes outperform complex portfolio optimization models that require extensive data and analysis. Similarly, in everyday decisions, too many choices such as dozens of varieties of jam in a store can overwhelm consumers, leading them to walk away without buying anything. A smaller, curated selection often results in better outcomes for both the seller and the buyer. By showing how less information can sometimes lead to better decisions, Gigerenzer invites us to rethink the way we approach problems. In a world obsessed with gathering and analyzing every detail, it's a powerful reminder that simplicity and intuition can be not just sufficient, but superior. Intuition, as Gerd Gigerenzer explores in Gut Feelings, the intelligence of the unconscious, is a powerful force that influences many aspects of life, often guiding us toward effective decisions without conscious deliberation. Far from being impulsive or irrational, intuition relies on unconscious processes that draw on experience, pattern recognition, and simple rules of thumb to navigate complex situations. Gigerenzer highlights how intuition operates in fields like healthcare, moral behavior, and social interactions, often outperforming overthinking in these domains. In healthcare, intuition often plays a vital role in life-or-death decisions. Gigerenzer discusses how experienced doctors frequently make quick, accurate diagnoses by relying on gut feelings rather than exhaustive analysis. For instance, an emergency room physician encountering a patient with chest pain might instinctively recognize subtle cues such as the way the patient is sweating or their breathing pattern that point to a heart attack. These decisions are not based on a deliberate review of all possible symptoms or conditions but on an unconscious synthesis of experience and pattern recognition. Studies have shown that in such high-pressure scenarios, doctors who trust their instincts often outperform those who rely solely on diagnostic checklists or exhaustive tests. Overthinking can introduce unnecessary delays or lead to excessive testing, which may harm the patient, as seen in cases where invasive procedures are performed without clear benefit. Moral behavior is another area where intuition takes center stage. Gigerenzer argues that much of our sense of right and wrong arises not from deliberate reasoning but from gut feelings shaped by social norms and evolutionary pressures. For example, consider the immediate, visceral reaction many people feel when witnessing an act of injustice, such as someone being treated unfairly or a child being harmed. This instinctive moral outrage drives action whether it's intervening, reporting the behavior, or supporting the victim without requiring a detailed cost-benefit analysis. Gigerenzer also discusses experiments where participants make moral judgments about hypothetical scenarios, like the famous trolley problem. Even when people struggle to articulate their reasoning, their decisions are often consistent with broader moral principles, guided by intuitive feelings about harm, fairness, and empathy. Overanalyzing moral dilemmas can lead to paralysis or rationalizations that undermine ethical behavior, whereas intuition provides a clear, immediate sense of what feels right. In social interactions, intuition is a cornerstone of effective communication and relationship building. Gigerenzer highlights how people unconsciously rely on gut feelings to assess trustworthiness, detect lies, or gauge the intentions of others. For example, when meeting someone for the first time, we often form an immediate impression based on facial expressions, tone of voice, or body language that tells us whether they seem friendly or deceptive. These snap judgments are the result of evolved heuristics that have helped humans navigate complex social environments throughout history. In many cases, our gut instincts about people are surprisingly accurate, as they draw on subtle cues that might go unnoticed in conscious deliberation. Overthinking social interactions, by contrast, can lead to awkwardness, miscommunication, or overanalyzing motives, which may hinder genuine connections. One compelling example from the book involves how people use intuition in romantic relationships. Gigerenzer recounts the story of a man torn between two partners. After carefully listing the pros and cons of each relationship, he still couldn't make a decision. Ultimately, it was his gut feeling that resolved the dilemma, pointing him toward the person he truly loved. This story underscores how intuition often reflects our deeper values and emotions, guiding us in decisions that logic alone cannot resolve. While intuition can be remarkably effective, it's not infallible. Gigerenzer acknowledges that gut feelings work best in familiar environments where our instincts are honed by experience. A seasoned doctor, for instance, is more likely to make an accurate intuitive diagnosis than a novice. Similarly, social instincts are more reliable when interacting with people from familiar cultural or social contexts. In entirely novel or highly complex situations, deliberate reasoning may be necessary to complement intuition. Gigerenzer's work reveals the profound role that intuition plays in healthcare, moral behavior, and social interactions. By trusting our gut feelings in the right contexts, we can often make quicker, more effective decisions than through overthinking. Intuition, far from being a mysterious or unreliable force, is an adaptive tool that allows us to navigate the uncertainties of life with confidence and clarity. Gerd Gigerenzer's gut feelings, the intelligence of the unconscious, fundamentally challenges the traditional emphasis on rational decision-making, which assumes that the best choices arise from deliberate analysis and logical reasoning. Gigerenzer argues that this view overlooks the power of intuition, which can be more effective than logic in many complex and uncertain situations. Far from being impulsive or unreliable, intuition is an evolved mechanism that relies on simple heuristics, rules of thumb, to guide us toward sound decisions. By examining real-life scenarios and empirical evidence, Gigerenzer makes a compelling case for taking intuition more seriously. Traditional decision-making frameworks, rooted in rationality, emphasize systematic analysis, weighing of pros and cons, and calculating probabilities. While such methods work well in structured environments with clear data, like solving a math problem or planning a budget, they can falter in real-life situations where time is limited, information is incomplete, or outcomes are uncertain. Intuition, on the other hand, thrives in these conditions because it simplifies decision-making, focusing on the most relevant information while ignoring the rest. A memorable example from the book is the story of Harry, who was torn between two girlfriends he loved and admired. Following conventional wisdom, Harry turned to Benjamin Franklin's Moral Algebra, listing all the pros and cons of each relationship and attempting to weigh them logically. However, when the results pointed him toward one partner, he immediately felt it was wrong. His gut had already made the decision, favoring the other girlfriend. This story illustrates that logical analysis, while seemingly thorough, often fails to account for the emotional and unconscious factors that shape our preferences. Harry's gut feeling, based on his deeper values and emotional connection, proved more aligned with what he truly wanted than the calculated approach. Gigerenzer extends this idea to broader decision-making contexts, showing how simple heuristics can outperform complex logical models. A striking example is a study predicting Wimbledon tennis match outcomes. Researchers tested various prediction strategies, including highly detailed statistical models and a simple heuristic, predicting that the higher-ranked player would win. Surprisingly, the heuristic performed just as well or better than the complex models. This is because the heuristic focused on a single, reliable cue, player rankings, while ignoring irrelevant or overly detailed data. In uncertain and dynamic environments, like sports, simplicity often trumps over analysis. The recognition heuristic offers another example of intuition's power. In one study, German students, with little knowledge of American geography, were asked to guess which city was larger, Detroit or Milwaukee. Most Germans recognized Detroit but not Milwaukee, and using this recognition heuristic, they correctly inferred that Detroit was larger. Meanwhile, American students, armed with more knowledge about both cities, often overanalyzed the question and performed worse. This experiment highlights how limited knowledge and reliance on simple rules can lead to better decisions by avoiding the pitfalls of excessive information and overthinking. Gigerenzer's work also sheds light on why intuition is particularly effective in complex, uncertain environments. Logical models require a complete dataset and stable variables to function accurately, conditions rarely found in real-world decision-making. In contrast, intuition adapts to uncertainty by leveraging evolved mental shortcuts, honed by experience and survival needs. For instance, a doctor making a quick diagnosis in an emergency room relies on gut feelings derived from years of experience with similar cases. These instincts often lead to accurate diagnoses faster than exhaustive testing, which can introduce delays or unnecessary complications. By challenging the traditional emphasis on rationality, Gigerenzer urges us to rethink the role of intuition in decision-making. Rather than dismissing gut feelings as irrational or unscientific, we should recognize their value as a complementary tool to logic. Intuition works best in environments where time is limited, information is incomplete, or the stakes are high. It is not a replacement for rational thinking but a different form of intelligence that excels in contexts where logic falls short. Gigerenzer's ideas remind us that real-world decisions are often messy, uncertain, and emotionally charged. In these situations, intuition can cut through complexity, allowing us to act decisively and effectively. Whether it's choosing a romantic partner, predicting the winner of a tennis match, or making split-second decisions in high-pressure environments, intuition proves that less can indeed be more. By embracing the intelligence of our unconscious mind, we can navigate life's uncertainties with greater confidence and clarity. The key takeaways from Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious by Gerd Gigerenzer revolve around the surprising power of intuition in decision-making. The book challenges the traditional belief that rational analysis and detailed deliberation are always superior. Gigerenzer shows that our gut feelings, those quick, instinctive judgments, are not random impulses but evolved tools that draw on unconscious processes, experience, and simple rules of thumb to guide us through life's uncertainties. One of the book's core lessons is that intuition often excels in complex and uncertain environments where logic can falter. Simple heuristics, like the recognition heuristic, choosing what you recognize, and the gaze heuristic, used to catch a fly ball, demonstrate how focusing on key cues can lead to better, faster decisions than overanalyzing a situation. Whether it's a doctor diagnosing a patient, a sports player reacting instinctively, or even choosing between two options in daily life, intuition allows us to act decisively and effectively when time and information are limited. Gigerenzer also emphasizes the balance between intuition and rationality. While gut feelings can guide us in familiar, high-pressure situations, they are not infallible and work best when supported by experience and context. For instance, intuition may help us choose a trustworthy partner or navigate social interactions, but it can falter in unfamiliar or highly technical scenarios that require more deliberate analysis. The message is clear: trusting our gut feelings in the right situations can be a powerful tool. Rather than overthinking every decision, we should learn to recognize when intuition is appropriate and lean into its strengths. By doing so, we can navigate uncertainty, save time, and often make better choices. As you reflect on the insights from this video and the book, consider your own decision-making processes. When have you relied on intuition, and how did it guide you? Are there areas in your life where you might benefit from trusting your gut more? By understanding and embracing the intelligence of your unconscious mind, you might discover new ways to approach challenges with confidence and clarity. Let intuition be a tool in your decision-making arsenal, one that empowers you to act swiftly and wisely when it matters most. As we wrap up, take a moment to reflect on your own decision-making processes. Think about the last time you trusted your gut. Was it in a high-pressure situation, a personal decision, or even something as simple as picking the best route home? How did it turn out? By understanding when and why our intuition works, we can use it as a powerful tool to navigate life's complexities with confidence and clarity. If today's discussion about intuition and gut feelings has sparked your interest, there's so much more to explore. Gerd Gigerenzer's Gut Feelings, the intelligence of the unconscious is just the beginning. You might also want to check out his other works, like Risk Savvy or Simple Heuristics That Make Us Smart, to dive deeper into the science of decision-making. For those curious about related studies, Daniel Kahneman's Thinking, Fast and Slow offers a fascinating perspective on how our minds balance intuition and logic. Finally, don't just take this as a thought experiment, apply it to your own life. The next time you face a tough decision, pause and ask yourself, should I analyze this or trust my gut? You might be surprised by how often your instincts lead you in the right direction. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Let us know in the comments, when do you trust your gut, and how has it helped you? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.